Oh boy, server maintenance. As you can see, I've moved my server into a different case. I've moved it back into the handle case, as I affectionately call it, because it's got a handle, but it's an incredibly cheap Apex case. USB on the top and stuff. Audio that I don't even use. At least it has a cover. I have a Pioneer slot loading DVD drive in it. Just reads, doesn't burn. That's all you need in a server. I like slot loading. I put the slot loading drive in here because it's a very slow drive, so it's not going to matter. And there are 4 drives in here, as you can see. I have 3 1TB Western Digital Caviar Blacks in here, which are all very similar to each other, so if the board goes bad on one, I can swap the board to another and get the data off of it. Smarts. Top drive here is a refurbished Hitachi 80GB drive that came in the Dell C521 that I mentioned in the Foxconn NetTop video. Now, what was running the server initially for a long time was this Kingston 128GB SSD. Now, I've decided that I have better use for this SSD in a netbook, so I'm putting the 80GB drive in here, and what I'm going to do is clonezilla this 128GB SSD to the 80GB here, since there's nowhere near 80GB of storage on that one. So we're going to see what we can do with that. And I have a Clonezilla CD prepared already on a crappy cheap Staples CDR, but these Staples CDRs seem to hold up extremely well compared to Memorex or any other brand that I've used. So we'll stick that in here and see what we can do. So, oh yeah, I should mention that I have a completely overkill power supply in this for the server to another Ultra LSP 550. And 550 watts on an added motherboard is way overkill. I should probably get like a 300 watt power supply and stick it in here. And I think Ultra makes 300 watt ones, so I'll probably stick one in there. Either that or I'll use a Diablo Tech or possibly an Antec, but probably Diablo Tech or Seasonic or something of the like. So I'll plug that in. Right there. I don't have to plug in networking, but I'll plug in the VGA cable. One thing I love about my Hans G monitor is it has DVI and VGA, and you can switch between the inputs. So if I want to see what's going on in the server, I can switch monitor inputs. And bada bing, bada boom. So, yeah. What I'm going to do now is hook up the keyboard as well. Yeah. Get this crap out of the way. I have this random. This was a $10 Light-On keyboard I got with my initial computer build in 2005. It served very well as a test, as a keyboard just for, you know, working on stuff, just to bring around. It's very light, very cheap, but it still feels pretty good to type on. It has all these media buttons that I never use on the top. But I digress. Let's get it started. So turn on the power supply here. Should turn on. There it goes. Shove the disc into the Pioneer drive. We'll probably shove it back out, not to shove it in harder. And then it'll take the disc. Get in there. This thing is not wanting to work. I don't know why. There it goes. Probably needs to be realigned or something, but the drive does work. Let me shut it off real quick and switch the monitor input over to VGA. And there you have it. Turn it on. Okay, now let me switch it over to VGA. Hear that Pioneer drive going wah. There, now we have output from the server. It's very loud optics. Damn. So we're going to boot from that CD off of that drive, which is Clonezilla here, of course. It's a loud Pioneer drive. This is the reason I put it in the server, because I won't be using that drive very often. Mainly because it's very slow. So I guess we'll do a Clonezilla live. There it goes. This Clonezilla is based off of Ubuntu 11.04, which could be good or bad, I don't know. Well, buffer IO errors because it's a CD. It's taking its sweet time, and you can hear the thing just derping along. This drive's old enough to have a volume control on it, and a headphone jack. These slot loading drives from back in the day were not very fast. And we're at the menu where of course I would select simplified Chinese. Let's go to English here. Don't touch the key map because the key map is fine, lol. Start Clonezilla. I would say device to device because I like that. Beginner because it's easier. Disk to local disk. Okay, we want to clone the 128 gigabyte Kingston to the 8 gigabyte Hitachi. And this is what it uses by default. On the fly, auto. Press enter on the keyboard over there. Warning, warning, warning! Danger, Will Robinson, danger! Yes, I know. That's the whole point of cloning a disk. Then it will be lost. Are you sure it'll be destroyed? Yes, do it. Shut up, do it. Is this disk too small? Probably. So maybe I have to actually go in and resize the disk first. Damn it. Alright, so I went to get my plethora of USB keys, and I have there's a program called Sardu that I use to have multiple boot things on one flash drive, so I've plugged that into the top of here, and I'm booting up Ubuntu on the server just so I can resize the partitions on the SSD so that I can clone to the hard drive, because the problem here is that Clonezilla did not like the fact that I was cloning a 128 gig SSD to an 80 gigabyte hard drive. I should have thought about that before I did it, but silly old me thought that Clonezilla could do it all. So what I'm going to do is just resize the partitions on the 128 gig drive so that it equals up to around, well, maybe 50 gigabytes. And then once I clone it over to the Hitachi, I'll resize it back to 80 gigs. Just so that there's a little bit of headroom. And of course, here's Ubuntu 10.04, and it's all glory started up on that machine. I don't have a mouse plugged in. Problem solved. Random USB mouse. One of my favorite USB mice, actually. Logitech Mouseman Traveler. These things are great. Let me plug that in real quick up here as well. I love having USB ports on the top of this thing. It just makes it very convenient to just plug something in. There we go. Now I got mouse. Let me just do that so I can shut off the screensaver. As you can see, it still detects that Clonezilla disk in there. So let's go over to System here. Gparted. There we go. That would be the 80 gig drive, which I am going to create a new partition table on. So that's completely clean now. There's the 128 gig SSD, which I definitely need to make much. Yeah. So 10 gigabytes is used on here. I'm going to resize this. Maybe around a 15 gig. 14907, how about that? And then I'll make the extended part of that just a little bit bigger, like 15. Let's see how much smaller I can make this. It's doing its thing. Check the hard drive indicator. Yep, it's definitely doing its thing. That's the thing about SSDs, you can't even really tell. This thing's cold. This thing is cool as stone right now, so yeah. Hopefully an SSD will work fairly well with this. I just hope this works, or else I'm kind of screwed. We'll get back to it. Well, these partitions were resized successfully, so we'll close that out. And we'll open up the calculator here to do some math. And we're trying to make sure that it's at least under or close to 80 gigabytes. So, turn numlock on the keyboard here. So what we have over here, as you can see, we have 57.03 gigabytes. Put that into the calculator here. And then we add the 14.55 onto that. We have 71.58 gigabytes. Now that theoretically should clone over to the 80 gigabyte drive there. So let's start up Clonezilla and see what we can do here. And 15.49 should add maybe 72 gigs to that, 72, 73, so we'll shut this down completely. It's very fast on a flash drive, so I'll take the flash drive out. Take the mouse out. And press enter on the key. Then it will shut off, and then it will go back to DVI, which is my main computer, which is on YouTube, watching random UXW build videos, because I felt like going through all of his videos, because I really have nothing better to do with my life sometimes. That's actually something I do a lot on YouTube. I just go to some of my favorite YouTube users' channels and just watch every video, just for the hell of it. And anyhow, back to the topic at hand. Let's try Clonezilla again. Move that back to DGA. Listen to the Pioneer DVD drive just derp away. Noisy optics, noisy optics. Okay, now let's try this again. And here we are in English again. So let's do this again, shall we? And hopefully it'll work this time. I'm going to select a key map just for the hell of it, QWERTY. US American. Standard. Standard. Okay, let's start Clonezilla again. And do device to device. Do beginner, disk to local disk. Alright, and let's do, it switched around SDA and SDB for no apparent reason. That's weird. Anyhow, let us start with the SSD and put that onto the Hitachi drive and see what it'll do this time. Yes, and yes. Do you want to clone the bootloader? Yes. It looks like it's going to work this time. This will start the clone. It sure does ask a lot of questions. And here we go. This is the 64-bit version of Clonezilla, so it should move a lot faster than the 486 or 686 versions will. And it's moving quite fast from the SSD over to the hard drive there. So it looks like we have success in resizing partitions. So if you're going to clonezilla a bigger drive to a smaller drive, back the data up off of it, shrink the partitions to a smaller size than what's on the actual drive that you're going to clone to. Then once you clone everything to that drive, what I'm going to do after this, of course, is going with Ubuntu again. Just so I can use gparted, but you can use any Linux distro or any resizing tool that you want to do this. But what I would do is then just max out the size of the partitions on the 80 gig drive, and back to where I want them, and let that be that. But it's moving fairly quickly. I'm liking the 64-bit version of Clonezilla. It's a lot faster than the 32-bit one, and that goes for both the 486 and the 686 versions. Nice thing about Clonezilla is on the 486 version you can use it on extremely old machines if you wanted to, including 586 based machines, which I've had a lot of trouble doing with sometimes. And a lot of the 586 based machines these days are things like mostly VIA processors, like the VIA C3 and the VIA C7, things like that. I'm not sure if the VIA C7 is 586, but I know a lot of VIA processors are 586s. And as my friend Sean found out recently, some thin clients have that as well. So it's good to know that for at least cloning disks with them, if you're going to do that. Anyhow, I'll come back when this boring operation is done. Damn, Clonezilla 64-bit is very fast. 2.36 gigabytes per minute. That's a lot better than I've seen before, where it can be like 500, 400, even like 80 on the 32-bit version. I guess this version is quite good. It's cloning the home partition of the drive right about now. So there you have it. Oh, fun! It failed to install grub. So now what I have to do is figure out how to get the Arch CD. So now what I got to do is find an Arch CD, boot the Arch CD, and figure out how to install grub from there. That's gonna be fun. And the part about Arch. This server is running Arch Linux, by the way. It was basically what it's been doing is it's been running grub 1.5, because that's what Arch uses. I don't know how I'm going to get grub 1.5 back on there, but I'm going to try. I'll have to research online how to do it. I'm sure I can do it with the live Arch CD and just install it from there if I have to. So I'll figure that out, and we'll get this girl up and going again. If not, I'm going to have to pull some of the data off of the SSD or the hard drive now that it's cloned, and then just reinstall the operating system on it. I might end up putting Debian or something else on here, but this is a full-fledged Linux server rather than just like a FreeNAS box or something. It does file sharing. I do most of my file transfers through SFTP, actually, which is using SSH to access the computer using FTP. Now, that's how I'm going to back a lot of the configurations and stuff up, but what I can do here is hopefully just get grub installed and then boot the thing up and have it work again. So we'll see what I can do here. Alright, it successfully ejected that CDR, so I'll take that out, stick it over there, and see, maybe it was lying to us. We'll find out. And that will shut the computer off. And then I'll have to hook the drives back up. I'll just unplug the SSD for the time being and see if it boots. Move back to VGA. This is how fun server maintenance can be sometimes. Okay, so it could actually boot into grub like this. So apparently at least into the rescue partition. So now all I have to do is figure out how to get this thing fully working again. My guess is I'll need to use the Arch Live CD. I have never reinstalled grub and Arch before, but I'm sure I can figure it out with the wikis that they also provide so nicely. I ended up having to go get another monitor because I couldn't, contend with switching between the inputs and copying stuff around, so I went and got this derpy little Acer monitor. So, I just managed to get Grub installed, so let's see if we can make this fucker boot. Come on, baby, you can do it. Yes! We have ourselves a booting machine. So as you can see, just with a little bit of effort, you can probe around and get this crap to work. Well, I don't have any other drives plugged in, so it freaked out. So I guess I will shut this thing off for now. Hold down that button there. Plug the other drives. I guess we can plug the other drives and see what happens. So let me get this SSD out of the picture here. Plug that into an actual hard drive. A real man's hard drive. Plug these other two in, and my drives are in fstab as UUID because /dev. Let's say if you mess with your computer like this, you have to redo it all over again. UUID, it just recognizes the drive. Doesn't matter what order it's in. There you have it. So, plug all the drives in, let's boot it up and see what happens. You can hear the Hitachi drive, it's clunky and loud. Makes it sound like a real server. 1.8 gigahertz. Atom D525 processor in there. More drives showed up, of course. Let's see if Arch Linux. I used an Arch Bang CD to install Arch because it includes a lot of stuff that Arch doesn't by default. Arch Bang is broken as a desktop, but it's quite good as far as regular stuff goes. So, yep, it's working fine. Starting SSH, Webmin, Samba, Transmission Daemon for the torrents, folding at home, Dropbox, service. It's working beautifully. Listen to that clunky drive. That 80 gig drive is a clunky motherfucker. Alright, so we have a booting drive. Now we just need to boot into Ubuntu and make sure the drive actually I just screwed up the login there. Let me halt this thing, and we'll stick Ubuntu in there. Got my Sardu flash drive here. I'll stick that in the top here. In anticipation of this thing turning off. Okay, so now we'll boot up Ubuntu. One thing I've noticed about this case is that the power button, the spring on it's a little derp. Like, favors itself towards the top, so sometimes it gets stuck towards the top end. F12, damn it. Oh yeah, I need the mouse too. Boot from your USB HDD, and it will boot from there, from my Sardu USB key. Boot from Ubuntu. I also have Fedora on here, Fedora 14, in case Ubuntu does not work, so I can get the gparted from both of them without a problem. And here it will boot. It displays the menu again for a second, but as you can see, it is thinking, judging by that cursor right there. I've almost thought about putting a tiny monitor on this server and leaving a keyboard down here just to mess with it if I have to. I guess I could put that, come to think of it, I could put the that little 14-inch ViewSonic monitor down here and use that. It's a little CRT. But I don't see the point when I could just switch between inputs on my main monitor there and, you know, plug a keyboard in if need be at some point later. Here we are again. So, go straight into Gparted here. And there's the 80 gig drive. As you can see, there's a little bit more room here. Not much, but enough. I think the root partition could be shrunken quite a bit because it's only using 4 gigabytes out of the 57 that are there. So I gather that I can resize that down to maybe 20 or 30 gigabytes. I'd say 20. I think 20 should be fine because I'm not going to have 20 gigabytes of installed applications on my server. I'm just not. So there we have it. Shrink that down. I can move the extended partition. Can I move it? Can I move the entire thing here? I guess. Move that back down to there. Move it up to here. Make the extended partition quite a bit bigger. Then maximize the size of the home partition as well, which is going to be 56 gigabytes approximately. Click that and hopefully it'll work. Hopefully Grub doesn't get messed up again in the process of this. This is what it's going to do. And there you have it. You can hear the drive clunking along a little bit. Somewhat. Sean described that Hitachi as sounding like an old Maxter. Now the Hitachi drive is slow, apparently, according to him, but it makes a good boot drive on a server, so I'm going to use it because it's been a very... Hitachi drives... I trust Hitachi drives more than any other hard drive because they've been so reliable to me in the past. I've never had one quit on me other than the ones that I've worked on when in IT jobs. And they've been quite reliable drives. They and Western Digital drives have been very good to me. Some Western Digitals have had crappy boards, but luckily the boards go bad and the mechanics don't. Hitachi's, usually it's bad sectors if they fail at all. But the nice thing about them is they either work or they don't when you buy them. You can kind of see hard drive lights, indicators just constantly on. Yeah, this video is just a lot. I'm making longer videos than I really intend to lately. I need to break this habit, unless you guys like my longer videos. Other than that, yeah, I might, you know. Yeah. Alright, while that disk is working on itself, what I'm doing is just putting the panels and stuff back on. So I'll stick these panels back on the side here. Get on there, you. Excuse me a second. There, I have that other panel back on, which looks good to me, and then I'll probably stick the this side panel on as well. As soon as I move all this crap out of the way. You hear that drive clunking away still. Although before I put the side panel on, maybe I should show you what all is in this thing, just as a recap. You've got your 3 Western Digital 1 terabyte Caviar Blacks, and this Hitachi, which is what I'm messing with the partitions on. This Hitachi 80 gigabyte SATA drive. I have an Antec 3-speed fan in here. I have it on low right now, but if I put it on high, it can get quite loud. I can put it on medium, and it gets pretty loud. But I usually keep... But the reason I buy these 3-speed fans is so I have the low setting, because low is fine for these drives. It cools the drives perfectly fine. I don't need a high-speed fan on these drives. They don't get hot enough for that particular requirement. And the LEDs I don't even care about. The fact that it has LEDs on it I completely ignored. I just don't even care if it has them or not. I care if the fan works, and the fan is double ball bearing. That's what I care about the most. Processor has that puny little fan on it, because it's an Atom processor. And here in the back we have just a plain, regular-ass mass cool ball bearing computer fan blowing air out the back, as you can hear. You can really hear that drive chunking along. This Hitachi drive does sound a bit like a Maxter drive. Damn. Alright, so what I'm going to do is put the side panel back on, get a permanent monitor up there so I can just use it for that server to monitor it, and, you know, have at it. Alright, now here's the server in the way that it will probably stay, although this mouse will be optional because I won't always have to use the mouse. I'll likely be doing stuff in command line, which is the reason I chose this tiny CRT, this ViewSonic E50, as the monitor for the server here. And as you can see, it is definitely busy copying files there. It's gonna take a couple hours to do this. Damn. Well, it's a good thing that I started this early in the day. It's about, well, not too early in the day. It's about 4:10 in the afternoon. But either way, I'm glad I started it now rather than later. And yeah, I mean, there's not much more to say other than I'll be able to boot the server and then, you know, run the Minecraft server, the Urban Terror server, the TeamSpeak server, etc., etc. Other than that, there's not much else to say. So yeah, I guess I'll just come back once I have everything up and running again and show you what it's like at the boot prompt and just, you know, things like that. I'll do that and then I'll close the video because it's too long already. Oh, I love listening to Genesis. Anyhow, after entertaining myself while this shrinkage and growage has happened with the drives, it looks to be successful. So what I'm going to do is, if you're wondering why there's no swap, it's because the swap I had actually put onto the one of the other hard drives in there because there was an SSD. I might change that at some point, but I just don't see the need to right now. I'll get to it eventually, but right now I'm just gonna, you know, reboot and see if it works. So we'll shut this down. I've moved the Dell keyboard down here since it's USB. It's got some finger grease on it still that I need to clean off. That's kind of nasty. Take the drive out, take the mouse out, press enter, and it should shut off. Off! There you go. Now we can start this thing back up. God, that Hitachi is a loud drive. There it goes. And hopefully everything will be exactly as it's supposed to be. I like how I'm using a 720p camera to film a CRT monitor. It just makes the perfect amount of sense, doesn't it? It's working just fine. Cool. No problems as of yet. All the modules are loading the way they should be. I'm using the old form of networking, so Arch doesn't like that because they depreciated it because they're idiots. There we go. Arch Linux. I call it the LM Atom server because it's an atom bomb of awesomeness. So there we are. There's a login prompt, so we'll log in and see how this guy's doing. I do have a desktop environment installed on here, so we can actually look and see if that still works properly. So I'll do a start X, and it should go into XFCE. There it goes. This is my optional GUI setup, as I've explained in previous videos about my server. So in case I need to do something, I can just get in there, except I don't have a mouse again, so I need to put the mouse in. And there you go. Programs I have on here. It's Archbang, so it kind of came with a desktop environment already, so I just switched what was around on it. Chromium Dropbox. All this crap runs in, this thing sits in command line pretty much all the time, so rarely sees graphical interface unless I really need to do something important with it. So yeah, I'll just exit that. Then it'll sit like that, and then I'll control it remotely with other computers around the house, such as this one, the netbooks, the nettop upstairs, or my laptop. And there you have it. There's the server, and it'll sit like this pretty much all the time. And what I'm going to do is pull the keyboard out, because I'm not going to have the keyboard plugged in the whole time, and just kind of move this thing out of the way and shove the keyboard behind here. And there you go. I have storage for the keyboard that I might need to use. And I can move the monitor back a little bit. Put the mouse away. And there we go. I still have some free desk space, although I still have to move this to get to the outlet. But that doesn't matter that much, so it's okay. And there you go. There's just some maintenance on the server and how it's changed and things like that. And that's about it. That's just what it's like to move drives on a server. It's a colossal pain in the ass sometimes, but luckily that one was pretty straightforward, and it required a little bit of thinking, but not too much thinking. So there you have it. Have a good one, everybody. Ciao.